Hey, good day everyone. Again, this is Jason Santos, and for today we are going to continue the discussion of practical research. So, nandito na tayo sa part 2 ng Module 3. As I have mentioned in the last discussion, Module 3 is one of the longest modules. In fact, when I was doing this, I had to shorten some parts because medyo mahaba talaga siya. So thank you so much. If you are watching now, it means that you are following the series of discussions, which is good. So let me go ahead. Let's waste no time and continue the discussion of Module 3. And we will be covering definition of terms, hypothesis, and then review of related literature. So first, let's define what is a definition of terms. So usually in writing a research paper, the definition of terms is included. So very important yung definition of terms. It is called the operational definition of variables, or yung ODV. Now, the word operational refers to how the word or term is used in the study. Think of it this way, if you are buying, let's say, a gadget, a cell phone, a computer, there's always a manual of operation. And then from there, nakalagay yung mga terms that you have to understand. And then dito, operational definition of variables. What this means is that throughout the study, there will be terms that you will come across, and then here in the definition of terms mo makikita what that means. Okay? So the definition of terms would be very clear. Ano ba yung ibig sabihin ng term na yun? Again, in the field of research, hindi tayo pwedeng mag-assume. We have to be very careful and ensure that everything that we are doing, writing, has a proper basis and evidence. So there are two different ways on defining the terms. The conceptual and operational definition. So pag sinabi mong conceptual definition, it is the meaning of the term that is based on how it is defined in the dictionary or encyclopedia. And most of the time, ito yung ginagawa ng mga students. Kukuha sila ng definition from Wikipedia, Encyclopedia, Investopedia, ikakopy nila diretso dun sa definition of terms. Well, there is no problem with that. Wala naman tayong problem with that. However, if you would ask me, I would still encourage a little bit of paraphrasing, because kapag kinapi mo lang siya dire-diretso, it would add up to the plagiarism percentage of your paper. Mas marami yung kinopy and paste mo online, mas malaki yung plagiarism percent mo. So that's what we are trying to avoid. So another would be an operational definition. Operational definition, on the other hand, means the term is based on how it was used in the study. And ito yung, if you would ask me, is a better way of writing your definition of terms. Because what this means is that you are writing this operational definition with the consideration of your paper. Ano ba yung context ng paper mo? And that's how you will define the specific term. So generally, there are two cases in which important terms needs to be defined. First, if the term is not common, kapag hindi common yung term, of course, kailangan mong i-define. And second, if the term has a specific or unique meaning, let's say merong mga words na napakadami ng ibig sabihin, you have to clearly define that. Let us not assume na yung mga nagbabasa, again, naiintindihan kagad nila what do you mean when you say this term. Okay, especially nowadays, ngayon napakadaming uri ng languages. And meron nga tayong mga tinatawag na language ng kalye, o di kaya gay language or gay lingo. So marami, napakadaming mga language na ginagamit ngayon. Ano? So, it is very important that when you put the terms, ilagay mo kung ano yung ibig niyang sabihin. Bottom line, let's not assume that everybody would understand what the term is all about. Lalo na kapag yung mga abbreviations, ano. Kunwari, itong ODV, nilagay lang siya diretso dito sa isang study. So you would be asking, anong ibig sabihin ng ODV, no? If you're the reader? Anong ODV? Paulit-ulit niya nilalagay. So, it's really important, no, to really write the definition of terms clearly. So, the benefits of having the definition of terms is that it is a useful place to include technical terms. Ito yung area wherein you can put in technical terms. So, your study is about ICT, about technology, ang dami mo nilagay, no? Naglagay ka ng crypto, blockchain, no? So on and so forth. Yung nagbabasa, hindi IT. No? Ano mga sinusulat niya? Blockchain, so ibig sabihin may kadena, itim, etc. No? Hindi niya na alam. But if you would have the definition of terms, okay, yun pala yung ibig sabihin niya doon. Ano? It can clarify the definition of term, especially if it has a different meaning. So, lalo na again, if yung words ay maraming ibig sabihin. Diba, yung common nga na joke is yung bababa. No? Bababa. Ano bang ibig sabihin ng baba? Baba na chin, baba na mababa, or verb na bababa ka, is it an action word? Marami, no? So, you really have to define ano bang ibig sabihin yan. Define the term according to how it was used in the study. No? So, again, yung context ng study, we have to take into account. Makes it easier to revisit or check the meaning of a term instead of trying to locate it through the paper. So, ang kagandahan ng definition of terms, alam na kaagad ng reader where to go pag meron siyang hindi maintindihan. Parang sa ano yan sa when you are reading a book, ano, pagka may mga hindi ka maintindihan, you would go to the end of the book, ano, to see the definition of terms. Kumbaga, doon sa may bibliography. Okay? So, it helps to ensure that the reader can understand the technical terminologies and jargons. So, yan, sinabi natin, meron ka mga jargon, may mga abbreviation ka, sinabi mo ODV, DVA, VAT, mga ganun, ano. Anong ibig sabihin nun, right? We have to ensure that all of these things are properly stipulated in our research. So, how to write the definition of terms? Okay, so write a brief introductory statement. Okay, it shortly describes the content of the definition of terms. So, list and write the words or terms. So, yan. Kailangan short. Sabi nga natin, ano, keep it short and simple. List. Dapat nakalista siya. It has to be enumerated, no? Which are technical, and that would be included. Make sure that the variables and key terms found in the title are included. Lalo na kuwari nakalagay sa title. Nagkaroon sila ng interest because there are things in your title na hindi nila maintindihan. Make sure that it's defined in the definition of terms. So, indent. Now, indentation should be applied to each term. So, when you write the term, you indent, no? And then you write the meaning. The term should be followed with a period. No? Pagkatapos ng term, lagyan mo ng period, you define. It can be underlined or not. It's up to you. Pwede mong i-underline, pwede ring hindi. Pwede ring bold and italic, pwede ring hindi. No? But rule of thumb for this, ask your advisor. No? Tanungin mo kung papayag ba sila na lagyan mo ng bold, italicized, or underline. It doesn't have to be lengthy. You have to make sure it's direct to the point. No? Acronyms and initials should be clearly defined. Ano ba yung ibig sabihin ng abbreviations na yun? Ano? Complete name should be written first. Kapag pangalan, kailangan nakasulat ng buo. Followed by the acronym initials in open close parentheses, then the definition meaning. So do not overflow with technical terms. Dapat wala masyadong maraming technical terms. Ano? If you have a long list, okay, make sure that you pick the ones that are evident from your chapter 1, ano, sa introduction mo, or it is evident in your statement of the problem, o di kaya nandun siya sa mga theories mo. Yung mga nasa related literature, hindi mo na kailangan i-define lahat yun, ano? Kasi again, dadami ng sobra yung definition of terms. Eh, ang sabi nga natin, you have to be direct to the point, you have to keep it short, you have to keep it brief. Okay? So, yung piliin mo lang yung mga terms na paulit-ulit mong gagamitin and are, again, rule of thumb for me, no, are evident mostly in your chapter 1. Kasi in chapter 1 foundation mo yun. Hindi mo naman magagawa yung chapters 4 and 5 kung hindi ka nagdaan sa 1. Ano? So, sa 1, nandun nalalabas almost all of the terms na sa tingin mo kailangan mo ma-define sa iyong reader or audience. And then keep the definition brief and basic. So, if you would notice, ano, paulit-ulit siya. Brief, short, direct to the point, brief, and basic. No? Elaborate it more on the body of your paper. So, sa definition of terms, diretso lang yung pagde-define and then saka mo na siya i-explain sa iba't iba pang part ng iyong research paper. So here are some examples of a definition of terms. So we have ito as is written in an example research paper. So sabi natin indent, yan, naka-indent, face-to-face, tapos mayroong period, sabi natin kanina, no? It is when the people involved are being close together and looking directly at each other. Period. No? So another would be module. No? Kasi maraming meaning yung module eh. Pero mas naging popular siya ngayon time of pandemic because it now serves as a modality of learning. Dati maraming modules. Even during our time, pagka may mga teachers na nagbibigay ng module sa kanilang mga students kahit na nagkaklase sila. Pero ngayon, pag sinabi mong module, ang iniisip ka agad ng iba is that there are no synchronous or asynchronous classes. You are purely doing things in a modular way. No? And then online, ano ibig sabihin ba ng online? So this is an example of how you would write your definition of terms. And then, pwede mo namang again operational definition, no? So kanina itong example natin, ito yung tinatawag natin na conceptual definition. But this is the conceptual definition and then this one is the operational definition. Pag operational definition, no, ito yung explanation niya, if you would see, mas mahaba na. Why? Because you have taken the context of your paper, no? Paano mo ba siya ginamit sa iyong papel, sa iyong research? So, ganun mo siya dinefine dito. So, kung kanina, pag sinabi natin face-to-face is when people involved are being close together. So, face-to-face na naman yun, ano? Close sila eh. And then they are looking directly at each other. Pero dito, sa paper mo, ang ibig sabihin ng face-to-face is that this refers to one of the modalities used in learning delivery. So, pag sinabi mong face-to-face, hindi naman ibig sabihin nagtitinginan ng diretsyo. No? Ang ibig sabihin, ito ay uri ng pamamaraan ng pagtuturo. This is a modality of learning. So, see, same term, pero magkaiba ang meaning. Ano? Magkaiba yung conceptual and operational definition. And again, it would be up to you how you would define your terms in your study. So, ayun. So next, now we have a research hypothesis. So, what do we need to know first? Ano? So, if you have watched my practical research one, sinabi ko na yung hypothesis is an educated guess and an area of research wherein you are free to have your own assumption. And take note that there are researches which has hypothesis and there are researches na walang hypothesis at pinalitan na lang siya ng assumptions. No? Generally, it would depend on the format of a research paper that is indicated in your school, in your university, ano, in your college. So, kailangan maklaro yan. Ano? Like for example, iba yung method, or sorry, iba yung list of items na meron sa isang research paper in UP as compared to let's say an Ateneo or De La Salle, no? Of course, generally magkakapareho yung mga yung structure, no? Pero part by part, there could be a little difference. Like for example, merong mga school na ang theoretical framework nila ay nasa chapter 2. Although most of the time it should be in chapter 1. So ayun, again, what we're saying here is that you have to really check the manual of your school and make sure that what you would have would be a hypothesis and not an assumption, vice versa. No? So a hypothesis is a tentative statement about the relationship between two or more variables. So na-establish natin during the last discussion, meron kang independent variable, may dependent variable. So yung hypothesis ang nagko-connect or naglalagay ng relationship between the two. It proposes a possible relationship between the independent, what the researcher changes, and the dependent variable, what the researcher measures. So yan na, magkaiba yan. Independent, yun yung binabago, at yung dependent, yun yung sinusukat. Okay? Furthermore, the hypothesis states a tentative answer to your research question that can be tested by further investigation, in which you can support or refute it through scientific research. Okay. It is a primary idea of any inquiry that transforms the research question into a prediction and integrates components like variables, population, relation between the variables. So, marami ang uri ng mga hypothesis, ano? And as a researcher, you must determine whether your hypothesis is accepted or not based on the findings and the outcome. So, not all studies have hypothesis, kagaya nga na nabanggit ko sa inyo kanina, no? At yung iba naman, merong hypothesis. Yung iba, assumptions, ang tawag nila doon. Ano? So, maraming uri ng hypothesis. Ano? So, simulan natin dito. The first one is what we call the simple hypothesis. A simple hypothesis is a prediction of the relationship between two variables. So, very simple lang siya. You're just trying to predict, no, or assume a relationship between two variables. So, meron kang independent, meron kang dependent. Example, the higher the poverty rate, independent yun, ano? Kasi unaffected yan, poverty rate yan. And then, ang dependent variable mo, the higher the number would be the out-of-school youth. So, pag mas mataas daw yung poverty, mas dadami din yung out-of-school. Independent, dependent variable. So, very simple lang siya. From the term itself, simple hypothesis. So, yan, may sample tayo ng isang study conducted in the US in 2012, no, poverty in high school dropout. So, technically, just to explore this term, ano, kapag ka syempre, mas mataas yung cases ng poverty, hindi na makakapag-aral yung ibang mga bata. No? Kasi not everyone can afford to go to private schools, while public schools has limited capacity. No? So, meron talagang hindi makakapag-aral. Kaya, mas malaki yung chances na mas marami yung dropouts. So, that's an example of a simple hypothesis. Next, we have complex hypothesis. So, pag sinabi mong complex hypothesis, no, it reflects the relationship between the independent variable and the dependent variable. And it expresses a connection between two or more independent variables. So dito nadagdagan tayo ng players, pwedeng maging dalawa yung independent variable mo. Kung kanina sa simple, isa at isa, dito pwedeng maging dalawa, isa, dalawa, isa, dalawa. No? So, pwedeng two independent variables or two dependent variables. So, ang example natin, eating more vegetable and fresh fruits. Magkaiba yun, ano? Iba yung vegetable, iba yung fruits. Hindi mo pwedeng pagsamahin yan. Pareho lang yun. Ano? there are certain vitamins or nutrients that are available in vegetable and not in the fruits, vice versa. So these two are what you call independent variables kasi they are not affected, no? They are independent. Leads to, siya ay pwedeng mag-lead sa pag-boost ng immune system and enhance blood circulation and digestion. So makita nyo, no, dalawa yung independent variable mo, vegetables and fresh fruits, and then tatlo yung dependent variable mo, which is the boosting of immune system, enhancement of blood circulation, and digestion. Okay, so yan ay isang uri ng complex hypothesis. Number 3, empirical hypothesis. It is called as the working hypothesis. Now, presumed to explain certain facts and relationships of phenomena. No? So, pag sinabi mong working, it is still in progress. Ano? Kumbaga, when you wrote your hypothesis, hindi pa siya absolute. Pwede pa siyang magbago. No? From the name itself, working, it would mean that it can be changed or replaced anytime as soon as it is no longer supported or accepted. Okay? So, example, plants watered every day grows faster than plants watered once a week. So, from this term alone, ano, or this assumption na ginawa natin, itong hypothesis na to, meron kasing time element which is once a week and every day. So, hindi mo pwedeng, habang ginagawa mo siya ngayon, hindi ka pwedeng mag-assume na absolute na kagad yung naiisip mo dahil today pa lang yan. No? We cannot say everyday kung isang araw pa lang. Kailangan iba't ibang araw para masabi mong everyday. And then once a week, isang beses lang sa isang linggo. So, may next week pa, may third week, may fourth week. So, matagal talaga yan. In that case, what you have is an empirical hypothesis. Here, trial and error are leading to a series of findings. So, trial and error yan eh. Pwede mong malaman the following week, ay, bumabagal pala siya kapag hindi mo nadidiligan, ano? So, or mas mabilis naman namatay nung dinidiligan kasi nalunod yung halaman. Ano? May mga ganong klase ng halaman. Eh. I'm just not an expert in botany, ano? But there are such things. Ano? Naalala ko lang yan kasi yung wife ko, meron siyang mga uri ng halaman na hindi pwedeng diligan palagi. Ano? And they would survive ano? Kahit hindi naman siya araw-araw nadidiligan. Kasi siguro ito yung mga uri ng plants that can survive with less water. Para mga, for example, cactus, ano, kahit na hindi siya masyadong dinidiligan palagi, they would survive. Kahit nasa desierto nga, no, they would survive. So, number 4, type of hypothesis, we have what we call as logical hypothesis. Expresses explanation with limited evidence, so konti pa lang yung evidence mo, but it can be verified logically. So, kumbaga ito, dito, wala ka pang masyadong evidence and what you are just using is logic. Sa Excel, ito yung tinatawag ko na if and then. If ganito, then ganun. Ano? So, sometimes a logical hypothesis can be turned into an empirical hypothesis in which you have to test your theory and then you postulate. So, for example, tomato plants bear fruit faster in Earth than in Moon. So ito, kahit hindi ka scientist, ano, or kahit hindi ka pa nakapunta sa space, by logic, no, gagamitan natin siya ng logic, you can safely assume na mas mamumunga ng mabilis ang tomato in Earth versus in Moon. Bakit? Because of the environmental factors. The presence of water, ample sunlight, no? The type of soil where you put it, no? And maybe the presence of mga bacteria or germs that could help the propagation of the plant, no? But until we are and can test the soil and plant growth in Moon, the evidence for this claim will be limited. So kahit merong in-applyan mo siya ng logic, we cannot claim absolutely that what we are saying is true. No? So yan, the claim will be limited, maliit, no? And the hypothesis will only remain logical. So ang ginagamit natin is the principle of logic, if and then. No? So, however, just to report, in 2019, China's Change for Lander went to the moon, and then they tried propagating cotton seeds. So, successful naman, nakapagtanim sila doon ng cotton seeds. It successfully germinated in the moon. However, namatay din naman siya later on. Kasi, pwede siyang tumubo, however, hindi siya sustainable, right? You cannot sustain plants for a long period of time because of the absence of many things, So, yun, just a tidbit of information. So, fifth, we have statistical hypothesis. So, from the term itself, a statistical hypothesis is an analysis of a portion of a population. So, if you are subscribed to my channel, meron ako mga discussions about statistics, So, when we teach statistics, portion siya of a totality, okay? So, analysis of the portion of a population, and it can be verified statistically. So, for example, if your research is about grade 3 students, psychosocial development of grade 3 students in private and public school, you'd want to examine every single grade 3. Yun yung gusto mong gawin. However, it's not practical. Baka 10 taon na, hindi mo pa nasusuyod lahat. At yung grade 3 na yun, nakapag-move up na siya, naging grade 4 na siya, naging grade 5 na, may nag-stop, so on and so forth. It's not practical. Hindi siya kaya, lalo na sa isang katulad natin, student, teacher, hindi natin kakayanin yun. Okay? Kukulangin tayo ng resources. Therefore, what you would do is you would conduct a research using a statistical hypothesis or a sample of the grade 3 population. So ito, tinuro ko na to in my previous discussion. You can use Reyosoft. Sabi ko sa inyo, yung Reyosoft, ilalagay mo lang doon yung total population and it will give you a sample size. So, ayan, you can revisit my previous discussions para makita ninyo yung tutorial ko about Reyosoft. So, types of hypothesis, alternative hypothesis. An alternative hypothesis is a hypothesis denoted with the symbol of H sub 1. Ang kabaliktaran nito is yung number 6 na wala lang dito sa slide ko, which is null hypothesis. But I will discuss it in detail. So, pag sinabi mong null hypothesis, okay, negative. Okay? Pag sinabi mo namang alternative hypothesis, it is the alternate. So, makikita natin yan. So, since ito yung available na definition, it is an alternate statement expressed to be tested in order to generate the desired output. So, example, this is an attempt to disprove the null hypothesis. Example, my health improves during the time when I sleep 8 hours a day than sleeping for 4 hours only. So, ito yung alternative hypothesis mo. Ang null neto is that my health does not improve when I sleep 8 hours. Kumbaga kabaliktaran lang siya, So, alternative hypothesis, another example, H sub 1. The application of biofertilizer X increases the plant growth. So, yan yung alternative, Ang null hypothesis naman yan, again, negative. Application of biofertilizer do not. May mga negative words. Not, does not, don't, increase plant growth. So, from those terms alone, alam mo na kagad, null hypothesis yan. Ito naman alternative hypothesis. Pagka-thesis, there is no significant relationship. Null hypothesis yon. Ang alternative naman, there is a relationship. Yan, ano. So, ayan na, ito pala yung null. So, sorry. The null hypothesis is denoted with the symbol H sub 0 or HO. It exists when you consider that there is no negative, no relationship between the independent and dependent variable. So, ito nga tinatanong ko rin to sa mga students ko and na nakaraan pinost ko to sa Facebook. Ano. So, will you marry me? Sabi ng girl, I reject the null hypothesis. So, ano yung sagot doon? Ano? What does that mean? What's the answer to that? So, since null hypothesis is negative and nire-reject niya, ang ibig sabihin is yes. Yes, she will marry him. Ano? So, there is no significant change in my health, whether I exercise every day or not. So, itong null at alternate hypothesis are the most common types of hypothesis being used in practical research and even in college research. So, ayan, nabanggit ko na yung meaning kanina. Pag sinabi mong null, no, negative, no observed effect. Pag sinabi mong alternative, some, there is, yes. What is it? It is what the researcher tries to disprove, yung null. But the alternate hypothesis is what the researcher tries to prove. Okay? Acceptance, no changes in opinions or actions pag null. Pag alternate, changes in opinions or action is present. Testing is indirect and implicit for null, and for alternate, we have direct and explicit. So observation, result or chance, result of real effect, H sub 0, H1, equal and then unequal sign. So yun yung differences ng null sa alternative hypothesis. So before writing your specific hypothesis, spend more time researching. Ito yung sinasabi ko sa mga students na madalas kinatatamaran nila, class or students, huwag niyong kakatamaran yung pagre-research, kasi the more time you spend trying to gather literature, information, the better your chances are during the time of defense. Kumbaga kung shinortcut mo yan, madaling makikita yan during the defense. Pagka nag-panel defense na kayo, ilang tanong pa lang ng mga panelist, alam na kagad nila whether dinoktor mo lang ba yung research mo or alam mo yun, pinagawa mo sa ibang tao. And that's what we are trying to avoid. Kasi kapag college ka na, mas malaking chances na ibabagsak ka ng professor mo kapag nakita nila na ganun yung ginawa. So, your independent variable and dependent variable must be included. So, nabanggit natin yung kanina, yung simple at saka yung mga complex na hypothesis. Relationship of your variables must be reflected in the hypothesis. So, is there a significant relationship or there is no relationship? Null and alternative. Your hypothesis should be simple and specific. Your hypothesis should be concise and comprises clear and simple language. Huwag mo masyadong gamitan ng mga words na sobrang lalim. You have to, sabi nga nila, layman's terms. Make sure that you consider those who will be reading your paper. And dapat maintindihan nila. So, grade 12 ka, grade 11, pagka yung paper mo, na-approve na ng teacher mo, graduate ka na, tapos nilagay sa library, babasahin niya ng mga now ay grade 10 students, grade 9 students. So, you have to make sure na ibababa mo yung level of vocabulary na gagamitin. Hindi ito pagandahan ng vocabulary or palaliman ng mga words na ginagamit. Okay? Simple language lang tayo. Your hypothesis should be testable. Dapat matetest siya without violating ethical standards. Baka mamaya, again, ito na banggit ko to, pahapyaw dun sa research ethics sa practical research 1, Baka mamaya yung topic mo masyadong sensitive o di kaya yung mga questions mo would violate someone's privacy, or would offend someone, i-double check mo muna, And then your hypothesis must be falsifiable. Anong ibig sabihin nun, Pwede siyang i-prove as wrong, Kasi kung absolute truth na yan at hindi naman na kailangan tanungin whether there is a relationship or no, bakit ka pa mag-hypothesis, di ba? No? So, kunwari, sinabi mo, there is a relationship with oxygen and the persistence of human life. Kumbaga parang logic na yun eh. Bakit mo pa itatanong yun? Pwede mo bang i-prove na mabubuhay ka without oxygen? Ano? So, dapat yung hypothesis mo, pwede siyang i-disprove at pwedeng hindi. Ano? Again, our goal here is not naman to be disproved, not to be 100% accurate or parang dapat pag naglagay ako ng hypothesis, hindi ako ma-disprove. Hindi ganun yun. Ano? Tatandaan natin, there are no absolute answers to research. Okay? But there is a possibility of validating the hypothesis. No, yung hypothesis natin, binavalidate natin yung kanyang accuracy. And whether it is true or it should be rejected. Okay? So we'll go now to the last part, review of related literature, last part of your module 3. So related literature is a compilation of studies related to the area of your research. Evaluates, classifies, and summarizes all the relevant previous studies conducted on a specified topic. It is also designed to justify your research by exposing the gaps. So kung may mga gaps or issues dun sa previous studies na hindi na na-cover, doon siya i-attempt i-cover sa related literature. That is why you should choose the studies that are focused on your topic rather than collecting a broader scope. Yung lagay ka lang ng lagay ng research, sige, lagay lang natin yan, lagay natin yan. Pero wala naman siyang kinalaman sa iyong study. Yun yung gusto natin i-avoid. So, the purpose of the literature review is to discover the connection of your research to the existing body of knowledge. So, yung research mo ba ay merong connection doon sa already available, what is already out there, what is already present, okay? To identify more theories, okay? Totoo yun, ano? Yung iba, nahirapan sila maghanap ng theories. Sinasabi ko sa kanila, ilan na ba yung literature mo? No? Kasi if you have read several literature, sigurado ako, meron ka ng theory. Hindi ka mawawala ng theory if you are reading and researching for additional literature. To determine the relationship of your research with previous research studies to prevent duplication. Ayan, ano? Of course, yun yung gusto nating i-avoid. Pag duplicated kasi yung work, meaning may gumawa na niyan, as in eksakto halos, pareho ng setting, pareho ng context, mako-question ka. Did you plagiarize your work? No? Kasi napakaliit naman ng chance na parehong-pareho kayo at hindi mo siya kinopya. No? And kung talagang totoo na sinabi mo, hindi ko talaga alam, no? Talagang clueless ka. That means ang pagkukulang mo is that you did not search well enough. Hindi ka nag-research ng maayos. Kaya hindi mo nakita yung literature na yun. Ano? You should be able to have found that literature if you are really researching. Dapat nakita mo na siya. To acquaint yourself with the technical terminologies relevant to your study. So, dyan mo rin makukuha yung ibang terms. Ano? And you are acquainted yourself. Baka mamaya, mas alam pa nung kausap mo yung ikaw ang nag-research. Ano? Yung topic na ikaw dapat ang mas nakakaalam dahil ikaw ang nag-research. No? Should avoid that. Ano? Determine possible gaps, conflicts na banggit natin kanina, and clarify misconceptions on previous researches. So, kailangan talaga ng research and it has to be continuous. Ano? Kasi ang body of knowledge it is evolving. Meron tayong mga pinaniniwalaan in the past na hindi pala totoo ngayon. Dati naniniwala ka sa aswang na ganito o di kaya yung mga napapanood sa Jessica Soho na merong kapre o kung ano man. Pero later on, through research, ginamitan ng mga CCTV na prove na hindi naman pala, meron lang ibon or merong taong nambabato. So on and so forth. So, yun yung purpose of continuously researching. So, The structure of the literature review is the introduction, the main body, and then the conclusions of recommendation. Ganun mo siya gagawin. Ako, kaya nilagay ko dito yung prep. Kasi I use this when I talk, I use this when I write. Ano ba yung prep? Yung prep is point, reason, example, point. So may point ka, you say what is the reason why that is your point, and then maglalagay ka ng example, and then you reiterate your point. No, ganun ang pagsusulat. Kahit saan pwede mo siyang i-apply, whether sa introduction, sa background of the study, or even in literature review, pwedeng ganun din ang pagkakasulat mo. No? For example lang, I'm just going to give an example. Let's say the point is, I don't want to buy Nokia phone. Example lang I'm just doing this for the sake of writing an example. I don't want to buy Nokia phone. That's the point. What's the reason? Because, listen nagsasalita, because there was a time that when I used the Nokia phone, it got broken almost immediately. Example is Nokia X123. And that's why I don't want to buy Nokia phone. So point ulit, Point 1, I don't want to buy Nokia phone. Bumalik ka ulit sa point mo. So notice na yung sinabi ko yung statement na yon, I followed the format of prep. Point, reason, example, point. So tatandaan nyo lang yan. Sa pagsusulat, sa pagsasalita, hindi ka mahihirapan mag-isip. Yung iba nga sa essay, sinasabi ko rin sa mga bata, they just follow the prep. Mapaparami mo yung word sa essay mo. So, yan, yung mga structures that you can follow. And then, of course, we have read that types of literature review, pwedeng context review, context meaning setting, contextual aspect, saan ba siya nangyari, anong time, anong year, what are the conditions. Pag sinabi mo namang historical review is a specialized type of literature review in which the researcher organizes the related researches according to the period of time. So, sasabihin mo, during the year 1987, ganun, historical review yan, focuses on probing research in a specified field in a chronological order. During 1987 and in 1988, yung kumbaga ascending yung order of the years, or pwede mo namang i-descending, it is up to you, kumbaga naglagay ka ng literature, sinimulan mo sa 1990, papunta ng 2000 up until the present day. Pwedeng ganun yung order mo. Pwede rin namang integrative review, common type of literature review in which the researchers introduces and then summarizes the recent knowledge of the study. Pwede yan per paragraph, So may nilagay siyang isang study, sinamarize niya. Lagay na naman siyang isang study, isa-summarize ulit niya. So ganun, integrative ang tawag doon. Pag methodological review naman, type of literature review in which the researcher gathers and compares and contrasts other studies. Maganda to, parang meta-analysis to. So, methodological, meron kang research A and then research B and then you're comparing it, So yan, pwede rin yan, ganun ang atake mo, Pwede rin namang self-study. Self-study is a literature review in which the researcher demonstrates his or her understanding of a specific body of knowledge, contains existing proof associated to a clearly stated research question, can also produce problems or prejudice, especially when it is used to summarize claims. So, atong self-study, it's more applicable for scientific researches, o like action researches, na you would demonstrate your level of knowledge in the study. Yung theoretical review naman is a literature review in which the researcher introduces several theories. So, puro theories. Kagaya nga na nabanggit ko sa inyo kanina, there are certain research formats na ang theories ay nasa chapter 2 or nasa within the type of within the review of related literature, no? So pwedeng ganun din ang iyong methodology. So where do you find the literatures, no? Pwedeng books, of course, although yung physical libraries are not accessible in majority nowadays because of the current condition we are in. But nung available pa yung face-to-face, pumupunta kami ng National Library. In fact, I have an ID in National Library. Me and my wife, we went there at one point. No? So, napakadami nilang libro doon. And maganda kasi automatic, na sila, kumbaga digital na rin sila. No? Na, what I'm saying is that parang available na yung some of their catalogs online. Correct me on that if it's not yet, but that's what I have heard. Scholarly journals. So yeah, there is actually a video I have made on this. I will flash it in some part of this video. Sa taas yung card. So maraming journals online. I have taught you on how to download it for free para hindi kayo magbabayad. And then dissertations, yung ibang dissertations that are published nandun din. Government documents, so yan, you can just go to government websites. You can go to BIR kung about financial or taxation or accounting yung inyong study, or you can go to NBI or any other Philippine website. Basta mga .ph yan. Pag pinuntahan nyo yung mga about section nun or publications, pwede ninyong gamitin yun. Kasi public document yun available for everyone yun. Pwede mong i-download. No? Policy reports and presented papers. Pag sinabi mong policy report, ang presentation nito, it's as if you're writing a book for non-academics, no? Meaning, it's as if parang story ang pagkakasulat niya. Para siyang investigative journalist, no? Parang it's presented in the form of a story. Pwede rin yun, That's also a form of a literature. And then, of course, periodicals, no? So, ngayon naman, you have online periodicals through the form of news online. May mga sarili-sarili naman silang website. You can go there. And then, print the exact news. No? I-print mo. Print mo as PDF. And then, i-attach mo later dun sa iyong study. Or kahit yung link, ilagay mo dun. So, those are some of the literatures that you can get. No? And then, when you write your literature, you search for the relevant literature, i-log, and then catalog. Ibig sabihin ng log, sinusulat mo anong taon ba siya na-publish, sino yung nagsulat, you catalog it, you arrange it alphabetically, ito yung from A to Z or from 1 to 10, outlining whether chronological, thematic, and theoretical, and then you write it up. So, and then important din yung in-text citation. So ito naituro ko to sa practical research. What we're using now is APA 7. Citation is a reference to a literature being used in your study, and it is a way of giving acknowledgement to the authors whom you have referred their intellectual works and creativity as a support of or foundation of your research. So typically, citations include author's name, date, publisher information, journal information, and or DOI, or yung Digital Object Identifier. So yung DOI, ito tinuro ko rin sa inyo how to look that up in my previous videos. This is your way on getting the research in full para makuha mo siya ng buo through the DOI. So yan. So when you reference it, kailangan kasama siya if it's present. If not, then wala, hindi mo siya ilalagay. Pag in-text citation naman, meaning habang sinusulat mo yung body, no, introduction, background of the study. Tapos i-refer mo, according to Alvaro in 2017, on page 770, the researcher describes a virtuous person as one who acts and feels as he should for the right reason, considering the circumstances. So yun, kinote mo siya doon. Hindi mo siya tinake na parang ikaw ang nagsabi nun, You did not pretend na ikaw ang may-ari nung statement na yun, but rather, you referred to someone who really wrote that assumption or that definition. So, in text citations, na yan, kagaya ng pinakita ko kanina, that this is an example of an in-text citation. No? To go further, yan, pwede mo naman siyang ilagay sa simula, no? Pwede, tapos yung page nasa gitna. Okay, ito naman kapag multiple, parenthetical citation, kapag multiple last names, and then year, publish, and page numbers. Pwede naman ganito, Stein. Kaya yung 2018 lang ang nilagyan mo ng parenthesis is because Stein here sa pagkakasulat is a part of the statement. So Stein studied. Yung verb na studied is pertaining to Stein. Si Stein yung nag-aral. Pero kung inilagay ko dito yung parenthesis sa una, I would assume na itong studied ang first word mo, no? So yan, yung mga bagay na yan, kailangan tama tayo sa pagsusulat niyan. And diyan papasok yung grammarian. From the name itself, ayan, in-text citation, reference made within the body of text. Should be reflected when you refers, paraphrase, summarize, quote from another author. Okay, pag ginawa mo yan, hindi ka ba kakasuhan ng plagiarism? Kasi inaako mo sinasabi mo rather na hindi ikaw ang may-ari or hindi ikaw ang unang nagsabi ng statement na yan, but rather I found it from this author and then I'm telling you now na sinabi niya to sa ganitong panahon, sa ganitong pahina ng kanyang libro. Okay? And then references and bibliography, yan, nasa mga dulong parts na to ng inyong research. References typically includes only the sources that you have mentioned. Ano ba yung pinagkaiba ng dalawa? Pag references, ito yung mga minention mo lang. You call that references. But bibliography contains all of the sources kahit hindi mo na siya sinama. Pero doon ka nakakuha ng idea, alam mo sa sarili mo, binasa mo siya, nakakuha ka ng magandang idea, pero hindi mo na siya in-include sa iyong paper. Yun yung differences ng references sa bibliography. Pag bibliography, all the sources you use to generate your ideas. Even if you have not mentioned or cited them in your paper. Pag references, yun lang mga sinama mo doon sa iyong paper. And then of course, you would still follow the APA 7 format of referencing and bibliography. Madali na yan ngayon. You can use Google Docs. Meron doong APA 7. Ilalagay mo na lang yung element. Siya na ang kusang ta-transpose into an APA 7 format. Dati, kailangan pa namin ng applications like Mendeley para ma-format into APA 7 ng mas madali. Ngayon, hindi na. Google Docs na lang. Kayang-kaya na niyang gawin yan. I might demonstrate that in my upcoming videos. So, with that, I hope you have learned from this topic. Medyo mahaba siya. I might have not covered some important parts. My apologies. But I tried my best to discuss the conclusion of Module 3. So we can move to Module 4 on the next video and discussion. And then for more videos like this, please make sure to check out my playlists such as Research, ABM and Senior High School playlist, and others para mas madali ninyo makita yung ibang videos ko pertaining to this topic. You can also check me out on the following social media platforms. And again, with that, thank you so much for watching this video. And I hope you stay safe. And I see you on my next video.